Each week, I'll set the stage, and honestly, the hope is that I would build a case for why we need to be having this discussion in the church. Each week, I'm going to share with you the same 5 statistics. It's the way we'll begin this week, next week, and the week after. A set of 5 statistics that I think makes a case for us to have a discussion open in the church. The question is, what do we do with the statistics that I'm going to share with you last week, this week, and the coming 2 weeks? I believe that there's an answer. I believe that there is encouragement, and also I believe that there is steps that we can discover and find inside of our Bibles that point us in a healthy direction when it comes to mental health. I also think it's an incredibly important and appropriate conversation to have as a church. And I know that there are many out there that think differently. They would say, no, it is not a conversation to have within the walls of the church, that it causes more harm than good, and I would disagree. Here's my case. Over 60 million U.S. adults experienced a mental illness in the last year. Mental illness is not a phrase we like, and so we PG that for ourselves. We talk about mental health struggles. But from a clinical standpoint, if you suffer from anxiety or depression, they're not going to say, hey, okay, well, let's PG it. Let's make it a little softer for you. It's a struggle. They would just say, hey, that's what we call it, right? A mental health illness, or mental illness. Over 1 million people a week are now telling an AI they're thinking about suicide. That's a staggering number. That's a staggering solution that someone might think that's the way they would discuss that. Of the 60 million adults with mental illness in the United States, 21.2 million also had a substance use disorder, which makes sense logically. Like when we start thinking through, hey, how did this happen and how do we get here? We have this anxiety, this depression. We have these things that are happening, this inner turmoil, this inner chaos, and we can't figure out how to get the noise to stop. We can't figure out how to feel better, and so we search for things outside of ourselves. We search for a substance or something like that, and it numbs us a bit, and the numbing is great because we get to escape, and that makes sense to us, and so we just constantly go back to that numbing agent over and over again, and before you know it, the thing that we use to numb us has actually addicted us. I don't know if that's the right word. We've gotten addicted to it. And suddenly we have a substance use issue. Only 52.1% of adults with any mental illness received treatment in 2024. So half of the folks just said, hey, I'll try to figure this out on my own. 70% of adults in the United States are anxious about current events. Anxiety. That's what we're talking about today. Maybe anxiety for you looks like my computer screen. I don't know if anybody is like me. Maybe I'm fairly unique in this, or maybe I can find a friend or two. When I open my computer to get some work done, I typically start with good intentions. And my good intentions is I'm going to open my Google Doc, and I'm going to go to my Word doc, and I've got my work in here, or my Google Sheet, or whatever it is that I'm sharing in our team drive. And I'm working on that. Typically, if it's a message or whatever, I'm starting to do the research and the study and make my notes and start writing. And so I'm working on that, and all of a sudden I remember, shoot, I got to do this other thing. And so I hit Apple T. And for me, Apple T means we need a new tab. And so I open a new tab, and I start working on that, and I'm working on it. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, I also have this other thing that I need to do. And so I Apple T again. And then I go to the bank, and I got something to do with pay bills or something like that, or I'm checking on our church finances, making sure everything is going well with the building addition, and we got cash flow. And so I'm looking at that, and it's like, oh, yeah, I got this other thing. And I hit Apple T again, and so I open another tab. And then 37 tabs later, like my computer feels like it's going to take off. It's making the fan sound, you know what I'm talking about? And so it's like, shoot. But then somebody comes into my office, they want to have a conversation, which is always welcome. Like, well, not always welcome. It's welcome sometimes. And so I like people mostly. And so they come into the office, but then one of those 37 tabs is running an ad or playing some music, and I'm like, shoot, which one is it? And I'm trying to tell it to stop. I could mute it, but I'm not going to be defeated by an ad. I'm going to find you, slay you. And so I'm looking through the tabs, and I can't find it anywhere. And anxiety feels like that. 37 tabs open, and you're not really sure where the voice is coming from, but for sure it's impacting everything you're doing. Or maybe that's not anxiety for you. Maybe it's you fall asleep at night or attempt to fall asleep at night thinking through a conversation that went wrong. And how if you had just said this, it would have solved the problem. But but you didn't say that. You said something else because you weren't prepared, or you just don't think well on your feet. And the other person's so much better at that, and so you just replay the conversation in your head over and over again. But when the conversation's in your head, if you do it the way you planned it now, you would have won, but you didn't, and that creates more anxiety. Not just that you lost the conversation, but the fact that you could have won, but you didn't. Maybe you win the conversation a few times, or maybe it just gets worse because you realize, what have I done now? Because I just couldn't express myself. And so you fall asleep only to immediately wake up at 2:30, and the same conversation that you fell asleep to is still replaying in your head. And it's not the conversation that's giving you the anxiety, it's the outcome, it's the result, it's the consequences that follow the conversation not going well. That's also giving you anxiety. So you've got anxiety about what's coming, you've got anxiety about the conversation itself, and you've got anxiety about how you knew you could have directed the conversation a different way if you had just thought a little faster. And so your mind starts to spin out of control. Or maybe it's something else. Maybe your anxiety shows up some other way. But the truth is, most all of us have experienced that kind of noise. A noise that never stops. And if you're a follower of Jesus, then you probably heard things like this about what you should do with that as a follower of Jesus. Things like, if you just had more trust in Jesus, you wouldn't be so anxious. That's really the issue. The issue is you don't have enough faith. If you would just have more faith, then you would trust Jesus with these things. Or it's, I just don't pray enough. If I just prayed more. And so that's my solution. I'll just pray more. Because if I pray more, God will hear me more, and then he'll be more likely to do something about what I pray about. Or we have this thought. Truth is, other people have it so much worse than I do. And if I were to say out loud what's causing me anxiety, someone would say, that's what you're so anxious about? That? And they're probably right. So I shouldn't be anxious about it, but now I'm anxious because I'm anxious about it, because why would I be anxious about that? And now I'm anxious about that. We try to convince ourselves if we just figured out how to think hard enough, we could fix it. But we confuse overthinking with problem solving. The truth is, worry isn't wisdom. It's motion without progress. It's like getting your car stuck in the mud. And you drove into it, maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't. Maybe it rained a lot and felt nice and firm ground before you got out and went inside. But either way, you come out, or you drove into it and you stopped, or whatever the circumstances are, you now realize when you push the gas, the tires just spin. So there's motion, there's just no progress. And you think you know what to do, just push the gas harder, right? And all that does is put mud on whatever's behind you. And so you get out, and you're like, oh, I know what I need to do. I need to find some sticks. And so you go hunting for some sticks, you put them under the wheel, and then you get in, you hit the gas, and it just throws the sticks out. And the hole just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That's what worry does. It's not wisdom, it's motion without progress. So what does the Bible say about anxiety? What does it tell us to do? Well, any good follower of Jesus that's studied the Bible at length, when you come to them and you ask them the question, what does the Bible say about anxiety? Most likely, I'll bet, they'll turn you to a letter written to a church that specifically uses the word anxious. And this is what they'll tell you. They'll quote it to you maybe, Philippians chapter 4, verse 6. Here's the solution, people. Ready? Do not be anxious about anything, But in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. The end. That's what the Bible says. What do you do with your anxiety? Don't have it. That's what it says. It says you shouldn't be anxious. Stop being anxious. Don't be anxious. That's what it says. And all the good Christians can quote it because they're like, this is what Paul says. The Apostle Paul, this is what he says. Don't be anxious. And so you start looking on your body for the anxiety button. Like, how do I turn this off, And it's not there. The problem is that a lot of times when we read the Bible, we read it in isolation. We read it in a vacuum. We read Philippians 4:6, and we're like, okay, this is the solution that God's given us for anxiety. Don't have it. And that is what it says. I mean, it very clearly, we could read it in Greek if we wanted to, but English is translated pretty accurately. Do not be anxious about anything. But we got to remember, this was a letter written from a leader to a group of followers. And so he didn't tweet at them one-liners. He wrote them an entire letter. And so when he writes this idea, do not be anxious about everything, there's so much more than just this ideal situation of, well, I'm just not anxious. And why am I not anxious? Why am I not anxious? Because in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, I present my request to God. Now, I do want to make sure we understand this. He is offering us a trade. He's saying you could be anxious about everything. Amen. Or he says, I'll give you a trade though. You can do it that way. Or here's another idea. In every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Here's the key to understanding this. He says in every situation, don't be anxious about anything, but in every situation. In other words, he's setting us up to realize that in every situation, that means not just the things that cause anxiety, also the things that cause us joy. That in every situation, don't be anxious about any of those situations, but in those same situations, all of them, present them to God. With thanksgiving, that's good. He's like, so I want to teach you how to make the trade. He's not saying just stop it. He's saying these are your two options. And I would encourage you not to be anxious about everything. I would actually encourage this preferred future for you, that in every situation, prayer, thanksgiving, submit those things to God. But that is how the things kind of end, not a description of how to do it. He furthermore, in verse 7, shows us a little bit more of the preferred future. Not steps on how, but the preferred future. Let's look at verse 7. So if we do that first, we make the switch, not anxious, but we're going to, in every situation, prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God. Verse 7, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. So again, he's painting a finished picture. He says, hey, God's peace is going to guard your heart. That tells us, that implies there's an attack coming. It also implies God's got a plan for the attack. Like God's got a shield. God's got some armor that he's providing. It also tells us that it's not going to make a lot of sense to us when that takes place. That it won't make sense in the midst of our anxiety why we can feel peace. In other words, everyone else in our life might look at it and say, how in the world are you keeping it all together? And our response will be, I don't actually know. The best word I've got is Jesus, but that doesn't actually tell you much of anything. That tells someone about as much as Philippians 4:6. Just don't be anxious, tell God about everything, right? It doesn't tell them how that happens. He's painting this preferred future, this vision of what it looks like if we were to figure this out. Now, when we read that, it just sounds so simple. It's, okay, step by step. Don't be anxious, got it. Tell God about everything, got it. The result, the peace of God, I won't quite understand it, but it's going to guard my heart and my mind because of Jesus. That's what he's laid out. Now, let's get to verse 8, where he actually gets to the work of the promise. Now, nobody gets verse 8. They just tell you verse 6. So let's get verse 8. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Okay, well, this doesn't make me feel any better. It doesn't make me feel any better. So you're saying don't be anxious, just think about the good things. So in the middle of my chaos, in the middle of my storm, you want me to just push pause on the anxiety and hit play on the positive, Patty stuff. That's what you want me to do. That's what the Bible's solution is. No, that's not what it says. If we slow down, instead of looking for an answer we've already decided we want to be there, and we'll actually just read it, we might actually figure out a path forward that makes sense to us, that's a simple next step. Instead of this pie in the sky theology, just don't be anxious, tell God about everything. It's like we get home from work and we're starving. We're so hungry. And there's only one thing that can solve this craving in my belly. And it's a baked potato. And we are craving it. We're like, man, I can already see it. I can already see it. We want that potato skin to be a little crunchy. You know what I'm talking about? All you soggy potato people out there. You want a little bit of salt on the outside of that potato, you know what I'm talking about? And when you open it up, it ain't dry. It's just like perfect. Yeah, it's kind of like heaven. Yeah, I hadn't been there, but I mean, I got it. But you realize, shoot, I didn't even plan for this. I mean, I got somewhere to be in like 30 minutes. So what do? We microwave the potato. You can't microwave baked potatoes, by the way. I mean, you can do it. But they're awful, you know? They're awful. It's the same way with what Paul's trying to tell us. If we wait until we're in the middle of anxiety to do what he says to do, our best bet is to just microwave our faith. But a microwave faith is not going to get you through what you're going through. Paul's trying to say you can't wait until you have the anxious moments to start doing the things that's going to help guard you from the anxious moments. That whole visual is he will guard your hearts and minds. He will protect it, but that protection happens before it invades. He's saying, so look, and what I want you to do is I want you to think about that list. Remember that long list that he just gave us? What's pure and noble and lovely and admirable and praiseworthy. He said, I want you to start thinking about those things before the anxious thoughts get there. No, you can't. You can't microwave those positive thoughts in the midst of your chaos. It's too late. It's too late once that's already happened. He's saying, look, if you will give everything to God before things get anxious. That's what he says. Hey, you want to say, don't be anxious. You got to give him the good, the bad, all of it. Constantly having this conversation. The thing is, there's nothing you can do to stop negative thoughts in your life. Sometimes people will say them to you. Like you can't not hear them. I mean, you can't like, la, 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 la. You can't do that, you know? So you can't stop the noise. But you can choose which voice gets a microphone. That's different. Now, when I say that, maybe I'll just show you instead. Thank you, sir. All right, so what I want to do is I got a list. That handwriting is so nice. So it tells you I didn't write this list. But what I want to do, I just want to run you through an exercise. So I'm going to ask y'all. I know I haven't tried this, and I didn't tell any of you I was doing this. So we're just going to see how this goes. I'm going to ask you to give me something in your life that would be defined by the word on this list, okay? So I'm going to ask you to be specific. So if you say something loud enough and it's very general, I'm going to say, hey, be more specific with me, cool? But before we get there, you tell me which color is a little more like anti-anxiety. You know what I'm saying? Blue, green, blue, or red? There's two blues. That's purple. It's not blue. Okay. Who said red? Okay. That was a trick question. You failed. It's probably my son. Okay. Just quickly. Someone tell me something in their life that's true. Okay. Jesus can't be the answer for any of this. Yeah, that was good. I know we're in church. That's typically, sorry, Jesus, that is the answer, but you know what I'm saying? Okay. Be more specific. Husband and children. Got it. What's true about them?
What is true?
Yeah. The love of my husband. Well, Natalie, think better next time before you answer. Okay. Something specific that's noble from someone's life. Choosing recovery. Yes. Choosing recovery. Someone share something that's right from their life. Mentoring who? I put mentoring at-risk high school students. Someone give me something that's pure in their life. Whoa. Let's not do children. Tell me something else. Not God. Hey, who said dog? Yeah, does dog have a name? Scout. I watched a documentary on Marine Scout snipers, by the way, this past week. It was pretty cool. I don't know if that's where the name came from, but that was Apple T. I just opened another browser right there. Okay, something lovely. Be specific. Trees in the fall. Something admirable. Why? Tell me why. What's that? Got it. Wisdom of dad. Something excellent. Baked potatoes should go on there. We'll do it. All right, something praiseworthy. What's that? Be specific. No, not me. Where do you go to church? Okay, I'll take it. So the idea, sorry for those of you who are sitting over here, there's stuff written on this list. You'll just have to pay more for better seats next time. I don't know. I'm kidding. That was a joke. So what Paul's trying to tell you, he's saying, hey, can I create a habit for you? You might have read that list and thought all those things are just the same thing, but they're not. They're not the same thing. And what he's trying to say is, could you make this list? And the truth is, I think you look at trees in the fall, I think that's something that could change from week to week. Baked potato sounds good for some weather. For some weather, it doesn't. Honestly, it's your life. So I don't get to be the judge of what you put on your list. The question is would you actually take the time to make a list? And when he says, hey, take everything to God, if every day you're starting to have conversations with him about all these incredible things, then all of a sudden when that anxiety arrow heads your way, it doesn't make sense why it doesn't bother you as much, but you've been preparing for it. Because you begin to realize that anxiety arrow, there's no way it can take out all these things. And it begins to train your perspective to say, hey, I know life is not always going to be easy. And so I want to make sure I remember all the really good movement things that are happening with me. This isn't just something that's new for us, though. We've been talking about this for the last 5 months. If you were here with us over the summer, you heard so many times this story where Jesus said there's two builders, and one built his house on the sand, and one built his house on the rock. And life happened to both equally. Circumstances were awful. Rain came, waters rose, wind beat against the house. And one of the builders, the guy who built his house on the sand, it fell apart when life happened. It didn't survive it. And the other builder who built his house on the rock, life happened just the same, and it survived it. And Jesus says the difference in sand and rock living is whether or not you hear the words of Jesus and put them into practice. This is not a foreign concept that Paul's introducing to this church at Philippi 25 years after Jesus. Paul is simply restating what Jesus had already been teaching. He's saying, look, if you hear my words and you put it into practice, life will happen. Paul's just saying, look, will you hear my words and actually do it? Don't just gloss over it and think that's theology. So when Paul writes this letter, he's not writing a letter as a lecture to be talked about in a theological class. He's saying, no, this is what I want you to do tomorrow. Like you read this letter, and this is what I want you to start doing now. So when we read the Bible, it's not just let me see how God thinks. No, we ought to be reading it and saying, okay, will I do what it tells me to do? And we stop at verse 6 and we say, okay, don't be anxious about anything. That's the dumbest thing Paul could ever say. But then he goes on to say, Jesus actually wants to guard your heart. He wants to protect you from the incoming attacks. And we're like, okay, well, that's great, but he didn't. And then he continues, and he says, this is how we want to set ourselves up to have our hearts and our minds guided, is we want to figure out what's true in my life, not theoretically, literally what's true in my life and what's noble in my life. And if it takes me a minute to get there, fine, take the time. But figure it out. What's noble in your life? What's right in your life? Pure in your life? Lovely in your life? Admirable, excellent, and praiseworthy. And if you take all of those things to God every single day, when that anxiety arrow heads your way, they're all standing up for you. So don't just read the Bible and think, oh, he's got an answer, but it doesn't work. It works. But you can't just microwave it. If you try to microwave it, it's gonna end up like garbage. And then you guess who you're gonna blame? You're gonna blame God. And God's gonna say, I never told you to put a microwave in your house to begin with. Paul doubles down on it in verse 9. He says, whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. He's saying it again. Put it into practice. Do something about it. Stop waiting for your world to fall apart and fall in love with Jesus. Stop waiting for your world to fall apart and then get serious about your faith. Stop waiting for your world to fall apart and then blame God when you're not protected. When you think, well, I read the Bible and that's what it said. Well, no, it told you some steps for the promise. And we thought the promise just came with memorizing Philippians 4:6. If we wait for chaos to find peace, it's nearly impossible. The truth is, peace has to be practiced. Peace has to be practiced. Peace has to begin before worry gets out of bed. And if worry is already bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in your life, and you decide to pull some peace out of the cupboard, your only option is to nuke it in a microwave. And you're going to get what you're going to get. But you will not get what God wanted for you. And you will not get what God has promised you. You will not get God's provision the way he envisioned it when he saw this happening in advance. You're going to get a last-minute, half-hearted piece of faith. And then you're going to get bitter at God because it didn't do what you thought it would. There's a psalm. Last week we spent a considerable amount of time in the book of Psalms. And we just looked at some really raw and intense language. It was really emotional language. It was language of abandonment, and language of despair and depression and anxiety. Language about thinking through whether or not they could continue on living. It was just a really raw, just Dear Diary entry that the whole world has been able to read. Psalms has so much to teach us, and so I want to share with you another psalm. It's often called the Psalm of Confidence, or the Psalm of the Unshakable Kingdom. In Jewish traditions, it's a psalm that's recited as a prayer for protection during crisis or natural disasters. I want to read to you Psalm 46, starting in verse 2 and then verse 3. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. Now we read that and we're like, okay, this reminds me a little bit of Philippians that we just read. Don't be anxious, therefore we're not going to fear, right? Not afraid of these things. But before we move on to the next step piece, I want to make sure we stop, because again, when we read the Bible, we have this tendency just to glance over it. And so we read 2 and 3. I'll read it to you again. Therefore, we're not going to fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. We read it and it's like, okay, all right, we're not going to be afraid. We're not going to be afraid. Let's just pause for a second and let's just read it and actually see what he's trying to teach you. He's saying, I'm not going to be afraid, and I'm not going to be afraid of what exactly? And he gives a situation. He says, I'm not going to be afraid even if the earth gives way and the mountains fall into the sea. So think about, let's go to your front yard for a second. We don't have mountains around here. Pretend you got a front yard with some mountains, okay? Right? Pretend you got a front yard. I met some people this past week from Wyoming. Are they here? My Wyoming people here? Okay, just kidding. They must have loved it. That's right. Yeah, that's right, online. Anyway, so they for sure had mountains. They just moved here. So just imagine you're in your front yard and there's mountains in the distance. You can see them from your front yard. And you're sitting out there and all of a sudden the earth begins to shake and the mountains you see fall into the sea. That's the picture he's trying to say. He said, I'm not going to be afraid. If the mountains I see, the earth shakes so much, they disappear into the ocean. That's what he's saying. So when we read the Bible, let's make sure we're understanding, like, okay, this is where you want me to be. This is where the author of Psalms is saying, I'm not afraid. The earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. He said, the mountains are shaking. I ain't shaking. The mountains are falling into the ocean. I ain't afraid of that. And you're sitting there watching it. Why is that? Well, the key in verse 2 is there's a therefore, which tells you something came before it, right? So let's back up to verse 1 and see what it says. Psalm 46:1. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. So now let me read it to you again the way it's supposed to be written. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. He said, I ain't afraid. And how do you get there if you had to microwave that the moment the mountains started to shake? You don't. You don't. You don't watch the mountains in your front yard disappear in the ocean with a microwaved faith. You stand confidently on your front porch and say, that doesn't scare me at all because God is my refuge. He's where I go when I'm in trouble. And he's my strength. Everything I have that's good in me comes from him. And he's always present, ever present in any type or time of trouble. And so I'm not afraid because I didn't microwave this faith. I'm living it every day. This doesn't concern me because I already know the Jesus that I'm taking these concerns to. And he's already taught me how I need to face the things that scare me the most. And it isn't to microwave them. It's long game, long haul, spiritual maturity. It's making a list and not checking it twice, but checking it every day of your life. It's knowing that the waters are coming, the winds will beat against your house, and it will all rise. But I'm taking the words of Jesus, I'm taking the teachings of Paul, and I'm putting it into practice because peace has to be practiced. It's us realizing that peace isn't found in control. We don't control the mountains falling into the sea. We don't control whatever the voice is that's coming in. We will give a microphone to these voices so they're loud and they're prominent in our life because we choose who gets the microphone in our life. We don't get to choose who speaks into our life, but we do choose who we amplify. So we're going to amplify this every day so that we're ready when the arrows start to come, that we're prepared and we're ready. That's the way we're going to do it. But we're going to realize peace isn't found in controlling those things. It's found in Jesus. So let me give you some really practical steps. If you're sitting here and thinking, hey, anxiety is a thing for me, let me give you some practical steps. Step 1, start and end your day with silence, not screens. You get to decide what you amplify. Start and end your day with silence and not screens. I would maybe even encourage you to have this list. Amplify this list. Step 2, choose one verse to recenter you when thoughts spiral. Maybe you want to use Psalm 46, 1 through 3. people who honor God with their entire life have been using that psalm in particular for generations now, and maybe there's some wisdom in trusting what they found comfort in. Let me encourage you, though, to take verse 1 and bookend it at the end of verse 3. I'll read it to you how I would read it if I were you. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Step 3, write down your anxious thoughts. But when I tell you this step, I don't mean like generally, like family Thanksgiving gonna suck, you know? Like be more specific. Yeah, be more specific. Say, hey, here's the deal. It's the relationship with me and my sibling or my mother or whatever it is. Like, it's this relationship. This is what's creating it. And this is what I've done to make it worse. Or maybe me not doing what I know I should have has probably also made it worse. Have you ever written down what you're anxious about so you could see it on paper? So you could actually look at it summed up in 4, 5, 6, 7 words? So that you can realize that, hey, it just fits on a line. And that one line, gosh, how did it get so much power over me? But I can write it down and I can look at it. Which takes you to step 4, that you would be so specific in your conversations with Jesus about it. Same specificity that we want to have with this list. It's not just, hey, my husband's great. Man, the way he loves me is great. That's what's true in my life. I would say even take it a step further. Be specific about it. It doesn't have to be generally over the last however many years you've been together. How about just in the last 48 hours? What specifically has he done? The more specific this list is, the better the guard's going to be. You've been taking this list to Jesus every day. When your list of anxieties show up and you put it next to this one, it'll get right-sized quick. Now, I think that's a decent routine. But I will say this. The truth is, as I've been talking this morning, there's a bunch of you who have come to the realization that it is too late for you to start those small list of habits because all you got is a microwave faith. That you haven't been doing the practicing of your faith, or you've been mediocre at attempting to practice the words of Jesus. And honestly, for so many of us, our practice is just, we'll go to church on Sunday. And if that's you, you're probably thinking, well, shoot, I am just up the creek. Truth is, you probably are. Which is why I have a second list for you. And this list is really important. It's a list that tells you if there's even one thing on it, that it's time for you to reach out and get some help from someone who didn't microwave their faith and wakes up every single morning thinking, God put me on this earth to help people in places just like you are right now. And I don't know why this is such a struggle for the church. I'll illustrate it for you. My hope is every day when you go to the hospital, that you drive downtown, it's sunny, you walk in and you think, God has equipped me to make a difference in these individuals' lives and the team that you lead. Make it make sense. It's my hope. As you fly your plane, 30,000 feet above the ground, sitting next to a co-pilot that you just met a few hours before. And the way that you talk to the passengers, that they would hear Not only are you great at what you do, but I would trust this guy with more than just getting me from point A to point B safely. That as you care for people who have lost loved ones at the funeral home just up the street, that every phone call that you get would be a reflection of the heart of Jesus. And that when they trusted you with the bodies of the people they love most, they would know they can trust you as a man of integrity and someone who will see to all the details and next steps, to take extra special care of them even if you didn't know them. That's my heart. That's what I assume, and that's what I hope you do. My son, I hope he walks the streets and halls of Noonan High School and the teachers see something different about him. And the people he plays baseball with would see something different about him, and he wouldn't just be like every other kid. You see, it makes sense in every other profession. And every other role in life, it just makes sense to talk about people like that. But when we get to counselors, for some reason, it's like, oh, that's voodoo magic. No, it's not. There are some worldviews, for sure, that could be. But when we talk about followers of Jesus who have decided, hey, this is what I want to get an education in, and this is what I'm going to study, it's what I'm going to go to school for, it's what I'm going to do my clinicals for, it's what I'm going to invest my entire life into, then they're doing the exact same thing. They're saying, hey, God woke me up this morning and has given me a gift. And I've matched that gift with an education and experience, and I'm going to leverage it, not for my bottom line, but to help people who tried to microwave their faith, and it's eating them alive. And so we partner with people in our community who are followers of Jesus that help people take healthy mental struggle next steps. Because that's what gets them up in the morning. A gift and a calling. There's a couple tents that are outside. There's going to be an additional one there next week. And then we've got a couple others that are a little full, but if it's a unique situation, they'll take a few more. But they didn't want to set up a tent because it's tough to have this many people if there's not enough spots in their rotation right now for what they have available. But I say that to say we got two things I want you to do this morning. The first thing is this. I want everyone to go out and at least walk towards, shake a hand, pick up a card. Trey has a lot of candy from what I understand at his tent. He thinks he can't run out. I think he's wrong. But I don't actually know what's under the table. It's tablecloth. He might have all of Willy Wonka's chocolate factory in there. I don't know. But I want everyone to go to a tent for this reason, because there's some folks that have just decided if everyone's looking at me, I ain't going over there. And all they need is a card. So if everyone goes, everyone who needs to go will go. The second thing is, we believe in the partnerships that we have, and we believe in these steps. And so if finances are tough for you and you're like, hey, pretty sure counseling is expensive, relatively speaking, it could be. And so you might be thinking, hey, I don't even know if I believe in this, but I trust you a little bit, but I'm still not sure I want to spend the money it would take to find out if you're right. So I would say, hey, let me pay for your first visit. And it's not something we just started for this series. We've been doing it for 7.5 years. It's an ongoing practice. When people give offering towards Foundation, pieces of that offering every single year go towards this very initiative. And so if you're in a place where you're like, hey, I think I'd like to try it, but I wouldn't want to waste money on something I don't think will work, we believe in it enough to say, hey, you can have some of ours. Now, the way that works is you've got to let us know that you're going, right? And so you reach out to us. You just text the line and say, hey, I'm going to make an appointment at one of the partners that we have. All the ones that charge already have it set up with us. And so what happens is you let me know. I call them and say, hey, so-and-so is going to be trying to set up an appointment with you. their first visit's on us. And so just when they come and have completed the visit with you, if you'll just send us the bill, we're going to take care of it. And all of them already have it set up with their bookkeepers and their all the front offices, all those things. And then there are some folks that we deal with that are internally funded, and there's not a charge for them to meet with you in a peer counseling way or to meet with an executive director or someone who specializes in what they do. And so just kind of, it's different for all of them. My hope is those two things, that everyone goes to a tent and no one makes an excuse because of money. That's my ask of you this morning. Everybody goes to a tent. No one makes an excuse because they can't afford it because of money. The one thing I want you to gather from this list is if one of these things are on here, did we already put it up? Nope, got it. If one of these things are on here, then you would take that step today. Number one, if anxiety is disrupting sleep most nights for 2 weeks, that would be a cue. It's time to reach out to someone who's great at what they do. Or number two, panic attacks are recurring. The first time you have a panic attack, you probably won't know what it is. I didn't. But you'll probably Google it. Tell me I'm done. Ain't got no church bells here. These things are too expensive. It's all right. Happy birthday, Caleb. But you'll probably Google it and you'll find out what you just had. If it happens again, that's your cue. If you're avoiding work or school or church or relationships to prevent panic, that's your cue. You need to have a conversation with somebody about why that is. If you're using alcohol, pills, or porn to numb, that's your cue. It's time to have a conversation with someone. Or you're having thoughts about harming yourself. That's your cue. It's time to have a conversation with someone. Ultimately, what I want you to walk away with today is that one simple phrase that we've said a number of times already. Peace has to be practiced. Peace has to be practiced. Today's a good day to go to practice.